This program is a horror show called Zhangzhen Tells Stories, which is based on real experiences in China. The content of this program is told by Zhangzhen's listeners based on their real experiences. If we take an individual's abnormal change as the main plot and tell a horror story, then whose change would have the most terrifying effect? The answer is undoubtedly someone close to you. The closer they are, the more familiar you are with them. When they undergo a slight abnormal change, you'll find it even more terrifying. Of course, I'm talking about abnormal changes. If someone just loses weight, that doesn't count. I wonder if any of you have experienced this in your life one day. Someone you're most familiar with suddenly changes. Xu Chen, 27, is a voice actor from Laiwu, Shandong. Let's listen to an experience Xu Chen had 8 years ago. I was 19 that year. Looking back now, it was a rather confused period of my life. I was young, ignorant, didn't like studying, and started working early. I was frustrated because most of my peers were in college, and I felt like I was already falling behind. I started to wonder, is this how my life will be forever? I couldn't find an answer at the time, so I drank to ease my frustrations. After work, I often went to the night market with my friends to drink. We'd end up drinking late into the night. But I had a good tolerance for alcohol. After drinking, I would just make frequent trips to the bathroom. It's rare for me to get so drunk that I can't stand or lose consciousness. That night, I went drinking again and got home around 1 a.m. When I walked in, my mom was still up, watching television in the living room. I clearly remember she was watching the Battle of the Red Cliff. My dad was away on a business trip, so it was just me and my mom at home. After I came in, I spoke a few words with her, and then she turned off the television, put down the remote, and went to her room to sleep. Was she really that into the show? Not really. In fact, she was just staying awake, waiting for me to come back. At 19, I was old enough to cause trouble, but too young for my mom to not worry about me drinking until late. Here's an important detail to remember. Before going to bed, my mom turned off the television and placed the remote on the coffee table in front of the couch. I clearly saw her do this because she was talking to me while completing these actions. I then went to bed. After a while, I was woken up by a full bladder. I got out of bed, opened the bedroom door, and walked to the bathroom. Just as I was about to turn on the bathroom light, I suddenly felt something was off in the living room. To this day, I can clearly remember the light in the living room. The bathroom was right across from my room, and it was only a few steps away. So, I didn't bother to turn on the light when I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I was familiar with every corner of my house, so I usually walked to the bathroom in the dark and switched on the light once I reached the door. After finishing in the bathroom, I would turn the light off, then go back to bed without any problems. So when I stepped out of my room, I naturally expected the whole house to be pitch black. When I noticed some light, I looked back into the living room and saw that the television was still on. But there was no program, it was just static. At that point, I saw someone sitting on the couch, facing the television. I thought it was my mom who couldn't sleep, still looking for her show. I turned on the bathroom light and went in. Before closing the door, I called out to my mom, "Go to sleep, it's so late." I finished in the bathroom, and as I was heading back to my room, I realized that it was unusually dark. Wasn't my mom watching television? I thought. I quickly turned around and stepped back, peeking into the living room, but it was completely dark. The television was off. I quickly turned on the living room light and looked at the couch, but my mom wasn't there. That's when I started feeling a chill down my spine. Even though my mom had turned off the television and gone to her room, there should have been at least some sound after all. We lived in a house with wooden floors. I knew that even the slightest footstep in the living room would be clearly audible from the bathroom. But I hadn't heard a thing. I stared at the empty couch, then at the turned-off television. Instinctively, I called out, "Mom?" But I barely said anything. There was no response. I walked to my mom's bedroom and quietly opened the door. When I turned on the light, I saw my mom lying in bed, fast asleep. Even though I saw this, I still gently called her name twice, but she didn't stir. At that moment, I realized something. The person I had seen sitting on the couch earlier wasn't my mom. So now, There had to be someone else in the house. The blood rushed to my head, and I felt as if someone was watching me, unseen, from somewhere. I felt like a hand would reach out from behind and tap me on the shoulder at any moment. I wasn't a child anymore, so I grabbed something and started turning on all the lights in the house. I checked behind the curtains, in the kitchen, inside the wardrobe, in every corner of the house, but I didn't find anyone. I checked the front door as well, and it was securely locked. No one could have gotten in or out. After all that, I calmed down and started thinking clearly. Was the person I saw on the couch earlier really my mom? The television had been quite bright, and the couch wasn't far from the screen. I should have seen it clearly, and there was no mistake me mom had been sitting there. But how could she have suddenly been in her bed, sleeping soundly in such a short amount of time? Could she have been sleepwalking? But even if she were sleepwalking, there should have been footsteps. That night, I lay awake, terrified, struggling to fall asleep. The next morning, my mom asked me, "What happened last night?" I noticed that all the lights in the house were on, so I told her everything that happened. When I told the story, I had an uncontrollable sense of fear. My mom is quite a superstitious person, so she called someone to perform a ritual for me. The person, who claimed to be a spiritual expert, said that I had an unopened lock on me. To fix it, she put a peach tree branch and a 100 yuan bill under my pillow and told me not to move them, claiming they would ward off evil spirits. Ever since that night, I never experienced anything like that again. I still keep those 2 items, perhaps just for peace of mind. But honestly, I always felt that what happened that night wasn't related to any lock or ritual. Over the years, I've questioned myself, did I drink too much that night, causing my hearing to fail, or did I experience some kind of hallucination? But I know my tolerance for alcohol, and with what I drank, I wasn't likely to lose control or have my senses dull. So, what really happened? Was the person I saw on the couch that night truly my mom? Thank you, Shu Chen, for sharing this experience. Honestly, your analysis of the whole situation is pretty tight, and this mystery remains unsolved for me too. I wonder what everyone else thinks. But Shu Chen's story made me think of a movie I watched a long time ago. I think it was on VCD. The film is about a lake in a small American town, which is an entryway to a parallel world. In this parallel world, people are the opposite of us. They have their internal organs flipped. For example, their hearts are on the right while ours are on the left. Whenever a storm rises and the lake churns, the people from this parallel world cross over into our world and replace their counterparts. The switch happens silently and without warning.